All right.
Hello,
Well,
Teresa.
hello, Melissa. Um, nice to see you again. And
Nice to see you.
well, I guess why don't you introduce yourself and where you are today?
Oh, hello. I'm Melissa Ichiuji, and I'm in Front Royal, Virginia, which is in the heart of the Shenandoah Valley. And I'm actually here in my art gallery called Melissa Ichiuji Studio Gallery. And currently, we have an exhibition up called Untamed. And I'm thrilled to have Teresa, your work, in the show. And so, thanks for getting together with me today to talk about your work.
Yay! Well, thanks for joining me. Um, and I'm Teresa, Oaxaca, and I'm sitting in my studio in Arlington, Virginia. And these are all my works around me. And I had this idea that when I was at the opening, which was just packed with like 28 artists who were all participating. And one of the things I love about your gallery space is that you have so much wall space and floor space. So there was just like so many different styles of hanging and installation for the art. Everyone was there with their friends and collectors, and I felt like characterful locals were there. So I took advantage of this opening and I filmed some slow motion creative shots. And I haven't actually looked at all the footage yet, so we'll be just reviewing it together and kind of, I think, going down a stream of consciousness dive about what the art and maybe what some of the artists represent. Um,
I think
and
that's great. I love
yeah,
sort of impromptu, just sort of reacting. So just so that our viewers, listeners know, we have put together a workshop. Actually, it's a lecture demonstration, and we sort of just recently put it together. And we thought, as a compliment, it would be nice to do an interview situation where we're talking about Teresa's work. She's explaining some of the thoughts and ideas and inspiration behind her work, but also talking about her upcoming lecture um, demonstration, which is also going to be a tea, afternoon tea. So on the heels of that, I'm also putting together a podcast video experiment called Creative Outlaws. And so we're hoping to sort of merge these two ideas today, where Teresa is going to show her video montage. We're going to speak about it. And this is something I would like to also present as part of a series called Creative Outlaws, where I speak with creative artists who are doing things sort of outside the lines and are pushing boundaries in various ways, either with their materials or their ideas. So just to get that out of the way right off the bat.
yes, we're truly multidisciplinary. Um, all right,
Renaissance women.
so everyone enjoy the painting behind Melissa because this is probably the most in focus image you're gonna get. Um, my video making style is a little um, creative, and I do this for several reasons. One reason is like when shooting people in public, I feel like as someone who used to get a lot of like photographers just taking my picture when I didn't want it, or bothering me in the street a lot because I have a sort of a distinct fashion style. Um, I got really tired of it. So now that I'm doing some photography, I feel bad photographing people without their permission. So everything is going to be a little bit like obscured, but I also like the dreamy quality. So
I think it's
um,
super interesting. I mean, it's a whole other dimension of the artwork.
yeah. So
It's,
you have a piano in your gallery, and you
I
had a
do
live
have,
pianist.
yes, and whenever we have openings, I like to have live music because it's one instrument. I've tried to vary the styles of pianists. It's sometimes been jazz, a little bit classical. The gentleman we have had this last time, Caleb Nye, is very jazzy, but also some more contemporary music. So, yeah, I think it really adds, and especially the space is sort of cavernous and it really carries. Oh, look at that. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, I
You know
didn't do
what?
all the filming. My boyfriend Daniel did some of it. So you and I will appear in many of the shots, as you will find.
Is this a post-production thing or is he doing it in time, the effects?
Oh, this is all in time. Yeah, so the only thing I've done is I've just put the clips together in no particular order, and I've done a little bit of color grading on them just so that they bring out, you know, I don't know what, the colors of the gallery.
So the prism effect, or however you want to describe it, is done in camera.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So I had a big little suitcase of effects, like a magician's box with me that I was playing with. And I think there was actually a funny moment. It was right behind the wonderful drink bar. And I just kind of like crouched down on the floor and I was changing a lens. And I think your husband was like talking to Daniel. He's like, "Is she okay? Is she all right?" He's like, "Yeah, she's just changing a lens." But there was just like nowhere to change the lens. That was a good spot. So it was just constantly
Yeah.
ducking down below people's radar and changing the effect creatively.
So do you have to actually change a lens, or it's just a flick of a switch?
Um, I do shoot manually, so I change a lot of
Mhm.
the settings, you know, for exposure, but I also have like a lot of filters and things like that that I apply. Um,
Yeah,
so
these are
this is
beautiful.
this is a cool wall. It's got Jody Masov and it's got is it Akemi Magawa with the
Akemi
giant.
Magawa. We've got Jean Kim back there with the sort of vertical, what are she calls boots. We have, let's see, Olga Sushkova with a yellow painting, and then the bird above that is Neil Stavely. We've got Patricia Underwood, left-hand corner, Joel de Orzo, the amazing chairs.
Yeah, it was really fun being in this show. I was really excited when you reached out to me. I didn't know a lot of these artists, but I had heard of Josie Mussoff for years because I did printmaking with Skip Barnhart, and he had her prints all over his studio. And I admired her prints a lot. And I had friended her on Facebook, and it was fun to like finally meet her. So it felt like I was meeting people like yourself that I had been aware of in the DC area. But you know, it's like DC is interesting. It's a big city, but it's not a big city. So um, you you end up like kind of almost meeting people sometimes, but if you don't have people in common, you don't meet each other right away.
And
Um,
yet we still feel like we sort of know each other. Like I felt like I knew you, even though we
yeah.
hadn't, maybe we'd met once before, but maybe a long time ago. But I felt like I knew you, and I had no hesitation reaching out to see if you wanted to be part of this exhibition. And I was so glad you said yes, because your work is so perfect
Oh,
for.
absolutely. Actually, so the first time I ever heard about you, um, I was taking like a summer college credit course at the Corcoran, and I was probably like 16, and I think you were doing a modern art piece on the steps of the Corcoran,
Oh,
and
yes, a
there was a
duration.
newspaper article about it. So I read that.
Yes, that was called Stripped. It was a durational kind of an endurance performance
Yeah.
piece that spanned a couple of months actually, but ended up being me sitting on a platform for 36 hours in front of the Corcoran. So some sort of like David Blaine meets, I don't know. But it was great. It was really, really a very interesting experience. So yeah, and then I graduated
Oh,
and
so you were a student. That was like a college thesis or
yes.
something?
You know, Janice Goodman was my advisor. So that was
Oh,
I believe that was my senior year there. Yeah, so I had a
wow.
whole career before going to the Corcoran. So I was a non-traditional student, meaning older, basically. So I had had a whole other career before going into fine art. And oh, look.
Oh, there you are with guests.
Yes,
Do you know those people?
I met them that night. They're Adam's friends. One of them is Adam is a law enforcement officer. And
Yeah,
so
that's
one of those,
interesting.
I know, one of those ladies is also a law enforcement officer. I thought it was such a really interesting, diverse mix of people, both the artists and the guests. You know,
Yes.
seeing you right there standing next to Adam, he's got his biker gear on, he rides a bike, a hog.
Yeah.
And just look at us like this menagerie of interesting characters.
Exactly. Yes,
I
the
love it.
art, the disciplines of art, the the costumes we wear, so to speak, or the personas we
Yeah.
have. You know, some of us have more than one, and I think it's really well reflected in the exhibition.
So, speaking of personas, and I know you probably are asked this a lot, and so tell me, I mean, of course, everyone loves the way that you dress, the way you present yourself. It's so whimsical and, it's just beautiful to look at. And I think so often people don't take the time to think about the way that they dress. It's effort. It's a lot of effort, but
Hmm.
you created this fantasy. And do you want to talk a little bit about it, or is that something that you feel like you want to talk about since it's
Oh,
such a
I'm
prominent part of?
always happy to set the record straight because I get that question a lot. Um, I grew up in a family that wasn't particularly concerned with appearances or clothing. They were more interested in like sports, you know. So everything had to be like sporty or functional,
Mm,
and um I didn't really fit in. Like I always was reading science fiction or fantasy books like on the bleachers, like dreading my heat because I was gonna have to like compete, and I hated competing. And like even if I was the fastest person, like I would feel bad that I was gonna beat people. And then if I wasn't, I would feel bad that I was letting down the team. Like I just never felt comfortable
mm,
competing. And there was always something uncomfortable about like being in a bathing suit or like if it's outdoors track and field, they're like in a very like revealing outfit. So I always wanted, I think I had this longing to like for fashion and things. I just didn't know, you know. Um, and so I went to school in Florence, Italy, and I had a summer where I apprenticed with the artist at Nerdrum in Norway. And around that time, I was starting to sell some of my own work. So I had some cash and I was buying at first like striped stockings and tutu skirts on the internet. And then it went from there. So I started building like a wardrobe of um, what I thought was nice clothing. And I think because I was in Florence and Norway, and so far away from my own culture, I had no shame in acquiring
mm.
pieces that I really liked. And I looked at things like alternative rock and fashion photography from like magazines. And I looked at, oh, obviously, because I was in school for classical painting, and I was in a city that had not just a lot of Renaissance museums and architecture, but actually a lot of 19th century.
Mm.
So I got very influenced by the 19th century. So I started trying to collect Victorian clothing and uh, modern clothing that imitated old clothing. So,
It's so fun. I mean, I so admire it. There is a sense of fun, but you do take it seriously. Like you're very thoughtful about the way you put together your ensemble. But I admire your commitment to it. In fact, it seems like it's probably actually easier to just go ahead and commit to a genre rather than having to worry about what's, current.
oh, absolutely. And when I was in Florence, I obviously was you know, I was exposed to a lot of different ideas. And one of them that was very popular in Europe is sort of like capitalist critique. And it's sort of like, I remember watching like these really well done programs that were like, okay, so this year the heels are flat. So we have to throw out the pointy heels, and that's going to stimulate consumerism, and we're going to just like flood the economy with more sales. And then next year we're going to say like the bell bottom jeans are out, and then everyone's going to feel bad, and they're going to have to pony up more money to buy like the thin jeans.
Skinny
You
jeans,
know what I mean?
yeah.
And I remembered that all from like high school too. Um and there was that thing where it was like there was this awful combination of most people didn't know how to sew. So, traditionally people made their own clothes. So it was okay if you were poor, you would just make nice clothes yourself. But
Yes.
you had people who didn't have a lot of money, and then you had people who had a lot of money. And the ones with a lot of money could buy all the new clothes all the time. And it was just like exacerbating this already like hard time in people's lives. So, um, I was really glad to step out of that. So I never throw anything away now. It just all fits into one big canon of wardrobe. And I have several tiers. I have like a working dress for getting on an airplane or maybe teaching a class. And then I've got like fancy dresses for shows, which is like what I have in this movie on. So you wouldn't wear that for teaching, obviously. You get like your pearls stuck on people's chairs or something. And then I have
Or
like
you don't want to get
super
oil
fancy.
paint.
Yeah, you get oil paint on it, right? And then I have like super fancy clothes for posing in for the art.
Mm.
And I can put other people in those too. It doesn't just have to be me, but um so they're
Well,
useful in many ways.
so do you use a lot of models in your work?
I
I know you
do.
have in the past, but
Well,
like not routinely.
just in this show, there's me there behind the pianist's head. So I'm modeling for myself, but there's I think two other portraits. There's a semi-nude woman with a lot of dolls.
Hmm.
And then there's another woman
Yes.
with a lot of birds. So those are models.
Okay, so the one behind me is not you.
No,
Hmm. Okay. So tell me about the painting with the dolls. I'm sure you get a lot of questions about that. It makes people uncomfortable a little bit. Not me.
yeah,
I like the, juxtaposition of the innocence and the sort of salacious. What do you
it's
think?
it's part of a trio that was commissioned by this woman. She wanted to make kind of boudoir paintings. She wanted me to make boudoir paintings for her and her husband. And I think two of them were received well, but that one was not received well, probably because of the babies. It wasn't sexy
Ah,
enough.
yeah, there was a conflict there. Have you ever been asked to paint something that you weren't okay with? That was just too much?
One time I did, and I tactfully turned it down. Um, it was actually it was an artist who I think he went to Harvard, and he's active. Do you know James Mahoney?
Gosh, that sounds so familiar.
Um, he's
It-
probably in
uh,
his 60s, maybe
where does
maybe
he
his
live?
um he lives in a condo in DC.
Oh, okay, so he's a DC person.
Yeah, he's curated shows. He's got like long dark hair. He's a nice guy.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he was very active in like the Katzen. I think he
Mm-hmm.
curated a show in like 2006 or 7
Yep,
there
I
that I
know
went
exactly
to.
who you're talking about.
Um so yeah, he's a really nice guy. He did this cool project that was called the Named Stones. So he carved the names of well, some of the stones are named like Amor and Psyche or Isis and Artemis. So there's like 7 or 8 stones, and they're all in Bluemont Park in Arlington, Virginia. And they were part of like an installation, I guess, on a field. And then they moved them, so you have to go find them. They're all hidden in the park, and they have there's even a map to locate them that's like really old. And two of them are missing, so someone stole them, and they're big, they're giant boulders, and so like I go looking for them now. I used to think like that's not art, that's dumb, and now I'm like, oh, this is really fascinating. And apparently he did it because in Japan, I guess in Shintoism, naming something gives it power. So he decided to name the stones. And so anyway, I'm like looking at all the stones in the park now. Like I'm looking for two stones. The one's called Vespers and one's called Old Signal, and they've just disappeared.
How would you
It's
know if you found them? Are they marked in some way?
they've been chiseled, like professionally chiseled
Um,
names. So I found like all of them, like, all of the ones that you can find. I would think, but anyway, he commissioned me to do his portrait, and it was like a small portrait, and it ended up being a portrait of him as a Buddhist monk, and he had a dorji that he's holding, and I put him in like drapery, and it came out nice. But apparently he has this psychic that he would communicate with, and she would read him past lives. So he had more past lives than I guess most of us are aware of having, you would say. And he really believed in this. And the Buddhist was one past life, but there was another past life where he said he was a Nazi. And
mm,
he even had collected a Nazi coat, and he had a story about how he was like in the he was a lower, he was sort of like a lower class Nazi, not in the SS, and he was on a transport truck and he got blown up. That's what he said. And he really wanted me to paint that one, and I didn't want that in my portfolio. So I
Ah,
was like, let's do the Buddhist monk.
exactly,
So
exactly.
so I remember that. That was like one commission I turned down. This is gonna sound bad too, but the another commission I turned down was it was like I think a nice family that I never met, and they wanted me to paint them. They were like nothing fancy, just t-shirts and jeans with socks on a couch. And
Oh
I was like,
no.
I can't do that.
Oh boy. So nothing like too crude or like you've never been approached. I'm sure you get approached all the time just by, creepy people and, I'm sure people take liberties taking your photograph all the time. And so I'm just wondering because of the nature of your work if people have been somewhat inappropriate, either with commission requests or yeah.
I'm sure there's stories, but I can't remember because,
Mhm.
as time goes by and you accumulate experiences, it's like you try to put the good ones in the memory folder and you try to like
Sure.
forget the bad ones. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, especially as a female artist. It's like if you want to have a long career, you gotta learn how to look at the bright side, I guess, of
Absolutely.
things. So
Absolutely.
I don't have time for that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a skill because they say human nature, we tend to remember the negative things um, for survival reasons. So, but nothing comes to mind except those funny stories that I just told you that had
Yeah.
well-meaning people behind them, to be
Have
honest.
Have you ever been to Japan?
No, I would love to go.
I'm sure, because a lot of the outfits that you wear remind me a little bit of the Japanese trends.
Yeah, I feel like they know Western culture better than like Europeans and Americans do. Like they, I've learned a lot about fairy tales through Japanese serialized cartoons, or I guess you'd like say manga. Like I have to go back and read the cartoon because we have like the Disney version, and then they've got like the dark version, the
I know
Grims
they're
and
not afraid of the dark shadow side, which I
yeah.
admire. That. Is there do you just do the next thing? Like, I know you're very prolific, and I'm pretty sure you are not ever wanting for ideas. Do you work in a series, or do you just sort of get enamored with something and just follow that thread? Or how do you decide what to work on next? And do you think of it in terms of like a body of work?
Yeah, I think this series happen in like different stages of your life. Um, I tend to add series and then just keep the old ones going. So at the moment, I'm starting a bunch of animal and flower paintings, and I'll probably demonstrate one of those in the gallery um, later
On the
next
22nd?
month. Yeah. I'll do the koi and flowers painting. So I've got some koi like swimming in the air with a lot of clouds behind them and floating flowers in a vase. So it's very airy and surreal feeling. And it's still realism, but it's like taking things a little bit away from the setting. Like it's not a table or it's not a chair. Um, but yeah, I just kind of feel like doing that right now. But I've also got some still lifes going on and a portrait commission, and um, I'm trying koi with everything. So I have like a self portrait with koi, a tiger with koi, cakes with koi. Like there's just
What's the significance of koi?
I think I just kept seeing them. They are a popular artistic subject. Almost so much that they can be like kitsch, I think. But I I think I just saw like enough koi that I was like, I want to do this. So I started to do it. And I've been visiting koi ponds in the area and taking a lot of portraits of koi so that I'm kind of on a mission to paint all the koi in the DC area now.
I think Akemi has a koi pond in her yard.
Yeah, I would like to visit that one.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the paintings now, and the one on the top with the woman with the dolls, and then the blue on the very bottom to the right, and even the flowers, like the painting behind me. The one on the top seems a little looser. So, do you often experiment with sort of a more looser, a more loose vibe? Oh, look at the dog.
Um, yeah.
Or a more tight?
Uh, yeah, I was I kind of bounce back between them. Um, the loose vibe is nice because you can get more ideas down faster,
Mm.
and it's better if you stand up and move back and forth. So it's a little more of like an energetic kind of experience. And then the tighter ones, you kind of have to sit and like brace your elbow and then kind of go all like Dutch old master um on it. And yeah, it just depends on how you feel. Um, I'm
I
trying to
love that.
combine both of them because I am getting a little bit of a backlog of ideas, and so I need to paint faster again, it feels like. So, um, yeah, I've at the moment I'm kind of using both methods.
How do you get out of like, how do you loosen up? For instance, could you ever imagine yourself doing a kind of Marlene Dumas? I want to say de Kooning, but I'm always trying to find female artists to use as examples because I get so frustrated when people give a list of examples of an artist or a writer or a scientist, and it's always men.
Mm,
Um, you know what I mean? And I think, okay, if I'm going to get mad about that, I better be I better come correct and have my own list. So anyway, would you ever consider doing something really loose, almost abstract?
I have a painting or two that I've done that has an abstract background, and I was purposely trying to do that kind of American abstract expressionism.
Uh-huh.
Actually, there's a bird one on the wall. That's one of them, the cardinal
Ah,
with
yeah,
the
yeah,
background.
yeah.
And
But
then
not
I
like a
use
Wesley Brown kind of like really. I mean, you're so refined. I would imagine it would be difficult to let that technique go because uh
there's
it's like
a
what yeah.
I think there's a problem when like I like looking at abstract paintings and they look like they do set the room off nice, but when I do it, it does feel like a waste of canvas or it
Hmm.
feels like mediocre. Maybe I'm not a good abstract painter.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I feel like I kind of have to like save it with a more realized image at some part of the painting. At least that's how I feel right now about it. Um, but I might change that. Um, I've been trying to do things that have a little more loose background context, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
Like I don't want the painting to look like a um I guess some people would say like a photograph, but I don't want it to look like a you set some things up on a table and copied it exactly, you know? So
No,
I
your
am
paintings
trying.
always look fresh. There's always a freshness about them. They're never overworked, I don't think. And what I admire so much about you is you never seem like you just keep moving forward. You're incredibly prolific. I also admire the fact that you enjoy teaching and you're very open about how teaching inspires you and is satisfying for you. I think a lot of artists are a little reluctant to teach because, there's that old trope like, well, if you can't do it, then you teach. Well, that's certainly not the case with you. Like you are managing both sides of the equation, like the teaching and the being a working artist. Do you ever, is that ever difficult, to do both?
Well, I've never really had like a full-time teaching position. That would probably be difficult. And I I mostly just do like one-off workshops where it's like a few days. And then I tend to have different locations and a lot of them are travel workshops. Like um I'll be in Holland in August and Mexico in October. So there's like the fun of going to a new place and seeing new things and new museums and new people. So that is fun. So I guess I'm more of a master class instructor, not um,
Yes,
a proper
yes.
instructor. Yeah. I can see how like if you're a full-time instructor,
Oh yeah, that would be
Unless
maddening.
unless you had a really simple like you had no hobbies and you just went home and made art, I could see how you would not have enough time to develop your art.
Hmm.
Um, but I can also see how there's like different phases in life and how that might be good for a certain phase of your life. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
well,
have not decided that I want to do that. So um, yeah, the workshops I teach, it's teaching for sure, but it's more of a um, you know, a presentation. It's a very short one-off thing. I've also got some online classes I do where I'm in my studio and then I record myself painting and I kind of talk to myself as I go. Um, so I kind of work on my own pictures and that seems to be a really good thing as well. So um,
so are those like live sessions where people can tune in? It's almost like a class, or is it how would you describe
uh,
that?
I have two versions. I have live Zoom ones and then I have ones that are just made for um, streaming. So the audio and the video quality tend to be better. And there's less chattiness. There's less like talking to students. It's just pure painting, color mixing. So it's very like Zen like. Um,
Okay, so is it something that you just publish publicly, or are they like, do you market them as classes? Are they digital
um,
apps that you sell, or
yeah, I just sell them on my website. They're just like online classes, I guess I call them, or pre-recorded classes.
so even the
Yeah.
dreamy kind of more cinematic ones? It's just sort of like a keyhole into your studio.
Oh no, I just use like a normal camera when I record my classes. Yeah, this
Oh no, I just mean
my
like,
hand
okay,
painting.
yeah. Right. So you have two separate things that you sell on your website. One is like a more proper class where you're talking and demonstrating, and then are you saying you have a separate kind of video that you sell, which is more just sort of you working, not necessarily talking, just observing?
Me talking to myself. Like, and now I'm gonna draw the outline here. Now I'm gonna
Uh,
add this, and I don't know what's gonna happen. It's like live painting,
uh-huh.
with like really good close-ups on the palette and the painting itself, and yeah, there's all sorts of subject matters. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. It's a lot of work, isn't it? But it's fun, right? The editing and the filming of things and
Well, I've figured out how to do it all live now.
live.
God be praised. Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean? You mean like just off the cuff? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't do any editing. I just have like three cameras that I can switch between, and I have a palette view and um,
okay,
a
so
view
you
of my
just skip
reference and then
over.
my canvas, which is the most important. And I'm not in it. It's just my voice with a good mic. And the people who buy them, they say that it's very relaxing. So
Oh,
it's like a Bob Ross experience.
right, right.
But not Bob
That-
Ross, it's me. But, it's like a lot of people watch them. They don't paint along. They can paint along, but they watch and then they'll like paint later. Yeah.
yeah, I can see how that would be very meditative.
Yeah, and I try to make painting less scary and more fun, but I still show like hard techniques and real methods, I guess. Like I don't dumb it down.
So
But
d during the
and we
course
don't.
of
Oh, go ahead.
no, during the course of this type of video you're talking about, do you actually finish a piece? Like, do you keep coming back to
Yeah,
that one thing piece?
yeah, yeah. It's like start to finish demonstration.
Is it hard for you to know when a piece is finished? Or are you pretty intuitive about that?
Um,
Or do you have to set it aside for a while?
I tend to take a long time on things because I have a sort of a perfectionism about it, but I think as long as the paintings are going in a way that's better than before, then it's good. You always want to reach a new level. That's what
Hmm.
I would say.
It's interesting because, I know with dance, you train, you train, you train, ideally in ballet, because, if you can get that technique not perfected, but if you have a sense of kind of the precision of ballet, you can sort of go on to do almost anything. However, it's a little bit hard once you get that training in you to let it go. If you've ever seen Baryshnikov trying to do Twyla Tharp, he's always going to look like a ballet dancer
Mm.
doing modern dance. But I'm wondering, like looking at Picasso, oh, okay, I gotta find female examples. Looking at an artist that started out doing very representational, realistic things, and then the goal was to let it go and loosen up. Do you feel that that's a goal for you, or not necessarily? You're just doing, putting one foot in front of the other and
Hmm.
with no goal in mind.
I don't no, I'm not sure that's a goal for me. It's interesting because right now I'm listening to a biography on Hilma af Klint, who
Mm-hmm.
um I was really surprised because the story is sort of taking place in the 1870s in Sweden, which doesn't sound like a very progressive time. But to my surprise, there were a lot of established older female court painters who painted kings and royal family and nobles, and they were making a living as females doing court portraits. So, um, it and their struggle was to there was this thing like seances, and there was this theosophical
Yeah.
society. Like a lot of women artists were interested in sort of being
Supernatural.
conduits or mediums to the supernatural. Yeah, I had no idea how many there were. So I'm just in the beginning of the book, but it's really interesting. So um, I feel like they did the whole realism portrait court painting thing like over 100 years ago. So in a way with art, it feels like everything's kind of old news. Like the abstract expressionism's been done, the even the seance spiritual thing has been done, the realism's been done. So I kind of feel like we can do whatever we want now, and I don't think that one is better than the other, or that you necessarily have to push forward anymore. In fact, there's a lot of people who think that some of the better art was in our past, which people always think, But so I'm more interested in looking at like all the art that's ever existed in our history and all
Hmm.
across cultures and time, and just taking what I want from that. So, um, but yeah, I like what you say about the dance and the ballet. It does feel like after trying to paint in a classical manner for so long, I can't let it go. It's like I'm kind of stuck, knowing how to do that easily, so to speak. Um,
Well, it's interesting because, we had an artist talk here at the gallery where, on Sundays we have basically panel discussions. They're pretty informal, but um, somebody in the audience, we opened it up for questions at the end, and a young woman in the audience asked, you know, uh, what do you recommend to do when you're stuck, when you feel stuck with your creative process? And somebody said, a lot of things, but one person said, well, just do what you love. Just do what you love. And as I go along, sometimes I think it's best to build a life around what you're good at. And the type of work that you make is really what you're good at. So maybe that's not the worst thing in the world, that if you're, quote, kind of stuck, I mean, that's your language.
yeah, yeah, and maybe being stuck is just you have to just move a little bit over, not completely change everything. You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just maybe a new subject matter or a new color on the
What about a
palette.
series of men? I know you've done men in the past.
Oh yeah, yeah, I have. I'm still working. I'm working on a big classical kind of portrait with Daniel as a knight, and it's about tons of flowers and a castle in the background and a giant snake of evil that he's like sticking a sword through, and cardinals and weird deer. Like it's like a King Arthurian legend kind of painting. Um, so I've always got some man portrait going
Yeah.
on. Um,
Do you ever feel pressure or at all interested in making work that is timely, like a commentary on the times that we're living in? Or does that not interest you?
I don't feel like with oil painting that it would work for me because it takes so long that I feel like if I were doing a photograph album or something, like I could probably push a book out in a month and take thousands of photographs and then edit them, and get the same creativity in the book. Um, and I think with like film or interview or anything like associated with documentary, um, I feel like it's more honest. Whereas I think that with art, um, it almost becomes like a propaganda, you
Mm.
know? Maybe not in a bad way, but it's just so clearly done by someone's hand that I don't know if you're. Um, it feels to me when I see it done poorly, it looks like the artist is like, look at me, and the cause is a reason to get seen. Um, so I would be like more into like street journalism or citizen journalism or um, photography. Um,
Mm.
like, wasn't there that really good photographer who died recently, Sebastião Salgado? Like he had a lot of
Hmm.
beautiful but like gripping portraits. Like war journalists, photographers. Like I feel like that's where I personally look for um, current events and past events. So
Like
and books. So
photojournalism
yeah,
more.
I just don't know if if the painting is always the right thing for it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or at least it's not the most effective. That's just me though. Like I'm sure other artists would have a more appropriate way to experiment or to convey that. Because we're all different.
Um,
I know I just stick a dress on everyone and a hair bow, and you know it wouldn't work.
I don't know. You could do that to our current president. That would be interesting. Um, your parents are alive, yeah.
Yes.
How do they feel about your work?
Um, I think they like it. They like they always like the kind of the old master quality of like the oil painting, the traditionalism. I think they like the arts in general. They're pro arts. They're definitely not the kind of people who are like arts have no business in society. It's
Right.
not a real job. Um,
Does their
Art has no
approval,
value. They're definitely not like
yeah.
that.
Does their approval matter to you? Is there always like a little voice in the back of your head wondering, or is there anybody that you're often mentally running something by? Like, how would so and so
Oh.
think of
Um,
this?
no, I think I mostly just try to make the kind of artwork I want to make. So that is the advantage of that. You don't have to worry too much about what other people think about it. And the world sort of being big enough, it's like there's always going to be some people that gravitate towards your type of work. And
Um,
that's probably the struggle a lot of artists have because I think some people are good at being popular on a mass scale, and then others don't have that skill and or that aptitude. And I think you shouldn't struggle to be um, super popular if you don't have that. It's not going to work. It's not true. Um, but then there's also this interesting thing where I guess it gets into like taste making and advertising. um, People can also be trained to like certain things or
oh,
influenced.
just through repetition.
Yeah, or larger narratives or I don't know, just it's like it's interesting what can make people like something or not like something. So I think about that too when I'm not too concerned about if people like my work. It's like um, a lot of a lot of society or taste making is about like manipulation. Like, I mean, the most obvious example is just marketing, advertising products. It's a lot of psychology and like genius going in there to manipulate people to get them to buy or think a certain way. And it's been going on for a long time.
Oh, sure. And I've certainly seen a lot of just in certain elite circles, the social proof of purchasing a particular artist and then the whole circle of associates also want to have that work of art because it's about status or not wanting to miss the trend or things like that. But that, and all you would need to do is see a painting in a famous movie or a celebrity's home, and then suddenly it's the thing to have. So there's so many factors at play.
Yeah, so you might as well just, like you said, do what you love and what you're good at, and um, hopefully it attracts someone who buys it or admires it because they love it, and it's a more genuine connection that way.
Sure. Well, it's so interesting. As you know, I'm an artist. I'm a working artist. I show my work, I sell my work, but I'm now also having the opportunity to be on the other side, and it is so interesting to observe people that come in to look at the work, and it you can't talk somebody into liking something. People have come in here and they have known right away that they loved something, and it may not have been the piece that I thought that they would like. So everybody comes with their own point of reference and their own biases and aversions and attractions. And, that's why I love having such a diverse variety of artists here, is because you never know what's going to resonate with someone.
Hmm. How's your experience in Paris been? You had a show there?
Oh, it's great. The gallery that I work with there, I have known her since 2012. So I kind of jumped over the American market a little bit because when I graduated from the Corcoran, my thesis show there, we had a presentation, and Martin Irvine, who had a gallery at the time in DC on 14th Street, came to the opening and he wanted me to show at his gallery right away. And so we had a show there, and he took my work to Art Basel, one of the satellite shows, and a European collector from Brussels. He's actually quite a well-known contemporary art collector. His name is Alain Servet. He bought my work because my work at the time was a little bit edgy, to say the least. And it took a very particular kind of buyer. And so he was that buyer. And so he ended up being quite a champion of my work, collecting uh, several pieces. And so the woman who owns the gallery, Sophie Scheidecker in Paris, saw my work in his collection, and she was doing a show about the doll, the theme of the doll. And so she had Louise Bourgeois, she had Hans Belmer, she had Cindy Sherman, and she wanted my work in that group show. And so that's how I became familiarized with her. And so we developed a relationship, and she would take my work to FIAC, which is an art fair in Paris. And then we have done several shows. So that's how we got connected, is just sort of by chance, my work being seen in a European's collector's collection. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this show that I just did, that we just closed last month, has been our maybe fourth show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's a whole different world there. It's like I feel a little schizophrenic sometimes because, as you know, where I live is a little more rural. And then, going to Paris and putting a show together and the openings and the whole scene, it's 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 like changing gears. But I love that. I love that. I feel like I can live different lives. Maybe kind of like when you teach, you can go to a different country and you've got inspiration, and you can use it all in your work and your inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that is quite a difference, Front Royal, Virginia, and Paris, France. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm assuming there's way more visibility over there in Paris.
It's a different demographic of collector. The collectors that go to her gallery or that are in that area, um, they're used to collecting Picassos and, very, very, a very elite kind of art. So they know what they're looking at. They are connoisseurs. And so when I go there, I feel very validated. The work is appreciated, it sells. And, I'm at the point now where I don't feel like, I don't feel like knocking on doors,
Hmm.
trying to find other galleries. Like I don't know. I sort of sometimes feel like I've done that, you
I
know?
mean, now there's the whole phenomenon too of just like the web, social media, people spending more time online and
Yes.
supposedly increased visibility. So I definitely have that feeling too. I get like, why should I have to go knock on doors when I can just stay in my studio, paint,
Uh-huh.
maximize my painting time, my creativity time, which involves like, having a certain amount of open schedule with no plans to do anything. Just if I feel like going on a run or I go to the zoo or I go to the museums or
Yes.
I start a new painting, it's like I need that. So um I've been experimenting with that, just trying to stay more local so that I'm not flitting around everywhere and see what kind of artwork comes out. And I've been pleased with the results. Um,
Do you feel that being on social media has increased, you know, your connection with buyers? Like, do people contact you directly to buy work, or is it mostly
yeah,
through galleries? Yeah.
no, I've been doing most of my own sales for a long time. Um, with your show, I'm getting back into like exhibiting and being in
Mm-hmm.
galleries, but I've mostly just been doing my own work um, for my studio and selling it. Um, but I think I would like to try more things if that makes sense. Like I just because something's working doesn't mean that I shouldn't be trying to avail myself of other opportunities. So
Sure.
um yeah, like
What would the
maybe I should
dream
try.
be? Like, would you want to pursue finding a gallery like in New York or somewhere else?
I'm not sure. I know that when I talk to a lot of artists in this area where I've been for a long time, they always say, well, DC's not really the best art scene. You need to go to New York. Um, and I don't know if that's just a stereotype or if that's true. Um, I kind of oscillate between just wanting to paint and, you know, be satisfied that way, and then thinking like, no, I have to push the career thing too. Like, who knows what'll
Hmm.
come out from that? So every once in a while, I'll feel like I need to do more.
Yeah. There's also the whole thing of, if you make work and then you sell it directly, there's never any critical writing about the work. It just sort of disappears into somebody's living room. And so one of the beauties about having a show, whether it's in New York or somewhere else, you can have people writing about it. There can be some thoughtful dialogue about your work, where
Hmm.
I find one of the drawbacks of selling directly or having being in a gallery and it just sells right away and not having any critical discourse around the work is unfortunate. But not everybody can get that, and I think the critic is few and far between now anyway. It's like a dying art.
Yeah, there's almost like a fear of saying anything negative, right? So you just have to describe the show, who was there, and that's the review. It's like there was a
Correct.
show, these people were there, they painted this.
Yeah, it was colorful. There were people in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, hmm.
Now I think I would like to get more international representation or exposure. I guess that would be nice. I mean, one of my favorite things is to go to the museums, and of course, with the contemporary artists, you always see the huge list of exhibitions and accomplishments they've made, and you're like, well, yeah, you can't just stay home and paint all the time. Like, you have to go out and try to make some things happen, I suppose.
Yeah, and listen, I'm telling you, if you build it, they'll come. That's the other thing. It is a creator's economy because, theoretically, you can produce your own shows. You can reach out to press. You can garner attention on your own. Because even if you work with a gallery exclusively, it doesn't mean that they're going to really work hard on all fronts.
Yeah.
press and collectors and images and the website and social media. That's not a guarantee, even if you do sign with a gallery.
Yeah, that would be my fear, would be signing with a gallery and then they're not really doing enough.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
always
But you're
thought that
really
is.
good at all of it, the the documentation, the social media of it, the website, the classes, you're really sort of touching on all points of exposure. You have a web YouTube channel
Hmm.
and
Which I'm hoping to get, like doing more things with it. So, um, for a long time, I had a kind of a paralysis. Like I was like, if I don't make a perfect video, it's not worth posting. And um, now I've got a book club going on. So we just did Georgia O'Keeffe Alive. Now we're doing the Hilma af Klint book.
uh-huh.
So I record the sessions and I put them up for free for people to watch later.
And
And
so and so when you do something like that, that's just a passion project, right? Or do you think of it in terms of, I don't think you're monetizing it, but do you see it as one way to boost your appeal or your exposure? Like, are you still seeing it as a way to grow your business by even doing something that isn't a paid, you know?
it's a bit of everything. I just listen to a lot of books. I find that artist biographies are particularly inspiring. So I decided to do, um, yeah, a book club for that. And I had some people who had been wanting these to come back because I used to do um, sessions where we had a model and we would
Mhm.
interview them and then we would not record the sessions. So it was during COVID mostly. So we just have people like tune in and they draw from the model and we just chat. And we started getting very booky. We started listening to some books. And so I thought, let me bring this back, but with longer books and no model. And so I've got some people back from that. And I do charge $25 to participate in the live session. And that's
Okay,
mostly
I see.
it's just to help pay for like the hosting fees for things,
Sure.
for the tech stuff I have to rent. Um, but it's free if you want to just watch the recording and
Mm.
comment. I'm hoping to get it live streaming. I still learning live streaming. Um, but soon it'll be a live stream thing, so you can watch live and comment for free. But if you want to be on screen in the recording, you gotta sign up.
I see. Okay, great.
It's
So you have all,
exclusive.
yeah, it's exclusive. So you have all the sign up and stuff on your website. Everything is available on your website.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
design your own website?
Oh yeah,
Is it on Squarespace?
it's on Wix.
Wix, uh-huh. And you like it?
I guess so. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
about Squarespace every once in a while, but I think it's too late to jump over. Yeah, you seem very good at the I like all your little press releases on social media and seems like you do a lot of Photoshop and you have good fonts and colors. Is that
Well,
all
it's
you
something,
too?
yes, I do everything myself. It used to be that I would depend on somebody and I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I can watch a tutorial. I can figure this out. And of course, as time has gone on, the tools have become much more accessible and easy to use. So for the graphics, it's like Canva and, I do edit all my own videos and I do my website. It's like anything, if you just take the time and just set aside time to learn it, anybody could really learn it. It is time consuming, I'm not going to lie. But it's hard to give up that control for me because if I hire somebody to do a newsletter and they mess it up or it's not, maybe it's just I'm a control freak, but I
No, I
find
feel
it,
the same way.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just there's so many components even to a newsletter that I feel very reluctant to hand it over to somebody.
It's also an art form in itself, how you present the work, how you advertise it and write about it. Especially with social media now, all the videos and the podcasts and the updates, it's like the timing, the color, the font, like it's all an art form. So we've all become like actors in our stories.
I know.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting because like historically speaking, we just had at most like we had journal entries, or maybe a book. You know, that was all we had, and like for some artists, we don't know anything of what they thought. Like Hieronymus Bosch is one that I'm like really curious about, but there's just not a lot of information about him or what he
Uh-huh.
thought. And then as you get closer to the 21st century, you have artists like pouring their diaries out or their lives out. You know, like Georgia
Mm,
O'Keeffe is like really well. She comes across really well in her letters she wrote over her
yes.
lifetime.
Have you
And
ever been to her, have you ever been to her place in New Mexico?
I did. It was a long time ago, and I don't remember very well.
Yeah.
Um, I think when I saw it, I was more into like the Baroque, the Western European art,
Yeah.
and her stuff was just very minimalist. So I think I wasn't like super into it at the time, but I appreciated it. Um, I definitely like made some Georgia O'Keeffe master copies when I was younger. You know, I like the bones at the moment. I like the floating skulls and the flowers.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
read today that the Gaudi Cathedral is going to be done in a year, basically.
Oh, it's amazing. I'll have to go visit.
Right? I'm reluctant to try to go right when it opens. I was tempted this morning. I was like, should I try to book a trip? Of course, I don't know the exact date, but I mean, you talk about commitment,
Yeah.
to one artist's vision, to be able to garner that much trust in people, with your vision that this is something we should do. It's like almost an impossible task. It's the highest cathedral in the world.
Yeah. And it has fruit on the spires, which you have to admire. Like
Yeah,
unique pieces of
absolutely.
fruit. And the inside looks like it looks like um one of the elf kingdoms from Lord of the Rings. It
Yeah,
looks like the
for
one that
sure.
Galadriel resides reigns over. Um it's so futuristic. It's beautiful.
Exactly.
All the sculptures in it.
And like Nikki de Saint-Phal, who has that big sculpture park, I think it's in
Yeah.
Italy. It's in Italy or France. But that would
Uh
be fascinating
yeah.
to go see. But just to have a team of people that are just completely devoted to you. I'm sure they weren't well paid, slaving away making these elaborate mosaic structures. And, that's just incredible. I think
Yeah.
she devoted the last half of her life to creating this thing.
Didn't we get a nice installation in front of the Women's Museum of Art on New York Avenue here in DC? There was a bunch of her women
Yes,
sculptures.
yeah,
Yeah, they should have kept that up. Or is it
I
up still?
agree. I agree.
It was
I
nice.
agree. Yeah, so are you part of this DMV Women's exhibition with Lenny Campello? He's
I
reached out.
am. Are
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
I'm
In
excited.
fact, you've heard it here. I'm breaking the news. We've just talked last week, and this is going to be one of the venues.
Oh, excellent.
I
Yay.
know. So we will be representing, actually, this area is considered now Northern Virginia, which is a little hard to believe, but
It's
technically,
growing.
yeah. And so this will be sort of the Shenandoah Valley headquarters of that whole show. It's growing. That show is like a monster now. But I think it's
Yes,
great. I think it's great.
I do too. Um,
Yeah.
I'm excited because I get to be in the Katzen.
Well, it's interesting because I was in the Katzen, but they don't have the money to deliver my sculpture, that big, huge steel sculpture. And so I said, well, I'm not bringing it. So why don't I just do a show here?
Oh,
And they
that's
said, okay.
nice.
So Jody will be here at the gallery, and this way I'll be able to put a call out to artists in this area, more of the women that are, say, for instance, participating in this show here now.
Yeah.
So it'll open up a whole new demographic of female artists out
I
this way.
think, yeah, I think what you've done is very smart having your own gallery space. I think that um, a lot of artists I talk to wish they could do that. I think that, and this has nothing to do with the Katzen or Lenny or anything, but I feel like historically artists have had a lot of runaround from galleries and a representation problem. And there's something nice about just being able to be like, well, I'm having a show here, you know? Um,
Well, it's not without a hell of a lot of work. But it's okay. I love it. We bought this building years and years ago, back when, nobody wanted to live in Front Royal. And all my friends were like, what are you doing out there? I mean, we were living out here when I was going to the Corcoran. So
oh,
we've been
that's a
here.
long commute.
I know. And so this was
Oh,
before I had a child, and my husband worked on K Street, and we would commute every day. But you get used to it, and it wasn't the worst thing, it goes by very quickly. But yeah, so we were out here before anybody wanted to be out here. And
okay.
now after the pandemic, now a lot of people are moving out here because it's only an hour outside of DC, technically about an hour and 20.
Yeah,
But
it's
a lot of
nice.
people that come in the gallery, either they have second homes out here or they've just moved out here altogether.
Well,
Yeah.
how much does your sculpture weigh?
Oh,
Is
the
that
big
the
steel
one?
one?
Yeah.
The weight isn't the problem. It's the unruliness of it. It's ungainly. It's difficult to get out. It was at the Katzen Center originally. I made it for the Katzen Center because I
I
did a show
see.
there
Yeah.
at the Alper Initiative, and they have this big atrium, and so it was actually made for that space. But I don't feel like dealing with putting it in a truck and moving it and all that stuff. And I think it would be a more interesting experience to host an all-female show here.
Yeah. So are there just going to be exhibits all at the same time, or are they going to be like opening nights staggered so that we can
They're a little
hop?
bit staggered. They're between September and October.
Okay,
Mhm. So
that's
they're
good.
staggered.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so good. Yours will be at the Katzen. That's great.
I'm excited because I've never been at the Katzen, so I
Mhm.
wanted that on my resume.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's really great.
So I'm making a nice frame for the painting, and I guess I'll be driving it over whenever the
Is
time
it a new
comes.
painting or something?
It's relatively new. I finished it in 2024. Yeah, that'll be fun. I go to openings there a lot, so it'll be nice to have a piece up.
Definitely. And of course, you can do your, social media montages and talking about your work. And, it's always a great opportunity to film things and photograph things, have people come. I'm
Yeah.
surprised at how many artists, I invited artists to come, like use this gallery as your living room. Invite people to come and film, talk about your work. But I think a lot of artists are still very resistant to tooting their own horn and
Oh, yes. I mean, when I was in school, it was considered like you shouldn't even be showing your works in progress. Um, you should wait until you have a body of work and then approach the best gallery or nothing at all. Like there was all these rules that maybe worked for an earlier era, but it doesn't work at this moment in time, you know. And yeah, that's why I'm kind of excited about just like all the different opportunities we have as artists right now because we're sort of rewriting how we get seen and how we promote
absolutely.
ourselves. And I suppose it's kind of like you were saying about um, when do you know a painting is finished? I suppose it's like when do you know you're successful? It's hard to know if you're successful or not, or what is that nowadays? Like, what does that mean nowadays? It's a tricky one.
It is a tricky one because yeah, it depends on what the goal is. Is it critical acclaim? Is it, making a living? Is it, yeah, it depends on what your goals are. And I think those goals change.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I like that bird on the cloud. That's kind of fun, sticking out
Isn't it
right now.
great? And there's
Yeah.
two of them. There's two of them. They kind of make a pair.
I saw
It'd
you
be
sold the
great.
fox. Was
I
that the
sold the
same art?
box,
Yeah.
yes. And that's a perfect example of a collector that walked in, looked at it, pointed at it, and said, and kind of glanced at the tag and said, "Okay, I want that."
Yeah.
No discussion, nothing. They just knew
Nice.
right away. And it had to do with something very personal. And so it's
Oh.
so funny, like you just never know.
I sold a painting like that once. It was on a King Street in a gallery, and it was a doll, like an antique doll from 1890, and it was holding a skull. And somebody from Canada or something was on a business trip, and they just walked down and they bought it, like almost sight unseen. They just saw it in an instant and they bought it. It's like no one
Mm,
local, no outreach or promotion, just
yeah.
connected with them. Never
You
heard
never.
from them, never met them, It's kind of a
Yeah,
random thing happened.
that's funny.
Yeah.
What is your connection with dolls?
Oh, I started collecting a lot of them in the early part of my career. I thought it was really nice that you could have antique dolls. The doll market had crashed a bit, so they were quite affordable, and they make really good posable props. And
Yeah,
I like that they were like very feminine, and they had old world features. The ones I collected, they were the porcelain ones
with the
from the
movable
19th
eyes
century.
or no?
Yeah, they had the movable eyes. It was really
Hmm.
fun.
Hmm.
I stopped collecting them after a while just because I felt like I had enough, but um, I still paint them from time to time. And they're all over the house, sort of watching.
I never feel like dolls are creepy. People have such a weird, I mean, I get it, popular culture and movies have demonized them.
That's a great example. There's a lot of horror films about dolls, and so
Yes.
that's people's introduction, and they think, oh, scary, you know,
Yeah. It's
a
so weird.
perfect
I love
example.
dolls. I collected dolls, all sorts. My mom got my sister and I something called Bilo babies, and there were these little, well, they weren't little, they were almost infant size, like firstborn, but they were porcelain
Yeah.
or ceramic. They weren't shiny, they were matte, like a bisque. But they were so, I never played with them because I felt nervous to break them. And so they stayed in their boxes. And sadly, I sold them, and I so regret that now.
Oh no.
And my
Ah.
mom would pack them in like wood chips, cedar chips, so that they didn't have moths get in them. But I wish that those kinds of dolls came back because it really teaches a child to be careful with
Mm.
things.
Yeah.
What have we lost by not having things that are fragile? Whether
Hmm.
it's a teacup or a porcelain doll, you know?
Yes. And if you break one, you feel really bad, and you cherish it more after that, or you understand what it means to cherish something a little
Yes.
better.
Yeah, and your
Yeah.
sense of touch and your sense of like, yeah, like the delicacy of how do you hold something that's valuable and fragile.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Look at this. This this little film is so great. I'm seeing people that I don't remember seeing at the opening. It was such a blur because
Yeah.
I'm trying to
That's why I
tell
like
it.
doing this, because I feel like
Of
I'm a
course.
fly on the wall, and I'm like, oh, that's what was going on behind me that I didn't see because I was in a conversation or something.
It's so great. And another thing I noticed, which is such an interesting thing, is if you have a camera in front of you, it's a kind of a shield. It's sort of armor. And I'm wondering, how do you feel? Like, do you feel different? Because you were talking earlier about a little bit of like unwanted attention. Do you feel more in control or more protected when you have that camera in front of you?
I'm sure I do, but mostly I feel like I'm always creating something. So I'm making a
You're just in the,
record,
yeah,
yeah, or I'm processing the world like with the way I would as an artist, and like I'm trying to frame things or look for compositions or maybe get new ideas to paint. So I feel like I'm always on, like I'm doing the art, you know.
yes, yes.
And like the teeth are really cool. What's what's with the teeth? The giant dentures, it's
So it's
nice to
called
see them.
American Beauty.
American Beauty, yeah. It's like it's nice to see it again. It's like I might have forgotten it, or
Yeah.
just it might have just been a weird back thought, but now I'm well, also just like the way you set the show up and the opening night it is a work of art in itself. It's kind of like everyone was involved in a performance piece, who came out and talked and stayed and looked at the art. So I also just thought it would be nice to get a record of that.
It's so
Um,
great. I'm so glad you did this. I really, it's so amazing.
I'm glad that we're doing this voiceover because I had this idea before um, before I mentioned it. I had the idea for like a long time, and had never done one before. And I have a lot of videos like this of other openings, and I just like was just waiting to make the perfect video and put it on YouTube and never did it. So now it's like I found a format that works. Like this is um, enjoyable conversation, and it's not going to take any longer than a conversation, right? It's not going to take like 30 hours. So I can do it now and give it a life online. But yeah, for sure. I think having the camera, it's even like a little bit threatening, isn't it? So if you're a bad actor and someone's holding a camera, you're less likely to act out to them because then you become a
A
photograph of
subject of,
yeah, you become art of someone else and then they have power over you. So it's like um I've noticed people in public or just anywhere I get a little less problems from people. Um and it gives me something to do. Like I it's probably not apparent, but I did a lot of talking at the show because it was like 3 hours. But in the little
yes,
still moments, I'd grab photos and videos, and it was like it
yes.
kind of kept me awake and full of energy.
Well, it also takes you outside of yourself. I mean, that's another reason why I love putting shows together of other people's work, because being an artist can be so, self-reflective and self-referential. And like by having a camera, like you're suddenly focused outward, uh, and not, it gives you something to focus on to not other than yourself. Like, oh gosh, I have to talk about my work, or is anybody going to come up and talk to me? Or not that you have any problems like with social anxiety, but I could imagine for some artists it's uncomfortable to be at an opening in a way.
Oh yeah. Well, I've gotten used to it. I mean, because I've done so many workshops and talks and show openings. But yeah, I don't know. It makes it more fun. I don't know how to explain. It just does.
Yeah.
Um, Actually, there's an artist I think I didn't get to talk to. There's always someone you wanted to talk to, and you just couldn't fight your way through the crowds. It was a young woman, and she had abstract pieces, and I think she's the only one wearing a
Yes.
burqa.
Yes.
What's her work, or
Yes.
what do you know about her?
How did I discover her work? I saw it somewhere and I asked her to be part of the show. And I just loved her work. I thought it was so interesting and mysterious. And I noticed that on all of her social media, you never saw her. And so I didn't
Oh,
know anything about her personally. I only knew her work. And so when she showed up, um, I'm trying to see if I can read something about her. Yeah, I don't really, she's very, I don't know if private's the right word, but she's not effusive. She doesn't share much about herself personally, especially on social media. So I don't know if that's part of her culture or if it's just her way. But I think her work is really interesting.
mhm. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I liked all the Jody Mussoff
They're so
lithographs.
quirky.
Yeah. Um, she's
She
still making a
really,
lot, right?
yeah, she's very prolific. She did
Yeah.
not want to do an artist talk,
Oh no. I see
but
you
no,
roped her into it, though. She's in
well,
one of
she
those.
actually just, I would never push anybody if they're not comfortable, but she's really funny. Like she's pretty camera shy,
Oh,
but she agreed to do it. She just called me and said, okay, yeah, put me down. So she'll be here this weekend.
excellent.
Yeah, there's my
Yeah.
sister with the short hair. That's my sister.
Oh, excellent. I didn't know.
Yes,
Very cool.
I have one sister. And do you have sisters and brothers?
I do. I have two sisters. They're in
Have
some
you
paintings, but they're not in any of the paintings at this show.
older or younger?
Younger.
Artsy?
No. No, I'm
Oh,
the
no.
one. I'm the weird one. Oh, here's the main
Oh, the
street.
best way.
I've got your
Oh,
town.
interesting. Wow.
So I like how you have this old town main street, um, kind of.
Yeah, it's funky. It's definitely rough around the edges. What I love about it is kind of like the Wild West,
Yes.
and it's so unexpected to walk into an art gallery that would show contemporary art. And that's what I love about it, is it's so unexpected. So I don't mind being sort of off the grid because then it's remarkable and people do talk about it.
Yeah.
It's unexpected. It's like, wait, there's this gallery in Front Royal and really great artists. So I'm
Um,
noticing really sophisticated people coming to Front Royal to come into the gallery or coming in the gallery. And not that they have to be sophisticated, but it's just nice to know that the word is getting out.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And one
mean,
of the,
people go to Luray Caverns, so why wouldn't they go to the
yeah.
gallery, you know? It's
Well,
a
and Skyline
destination.
Drive is right around the corner, the entrance to Skyline Drive.
Yeah.
So yeah, but one of the reasons we have these programs, the free talks and stuff, is so that the community doesn't feel intimidated. I've been kind of going out of my way to try to make sure that, people that actually live here feel comfortable coming in and that they have an opportunity to learn about art, to meet the artists. And so I do my best to try to get the word out. The local press has been incredibly supportive, always doing stories about the openings and the events. So that's been very helpful.
Um, Sometimes I think about the artist Cy Twombly. I don't know much about him, but I was
Hmm.
listening to a biography on this female photographer who lives in like
Sally
Lexington.
Mann. Yes, Sally
Yeah,
Mann.
yeah, she's like one of my favorites, and she was friends with Cy Twombly, and he had a lifestyle where he was like this big artist in Paris, and then he'd spend half the year in a small town in Virginia, which back then would have been very cut off from
Yes,
society, like pre-internet and stuff. And I guess, I mean, again, I don't know much about him, but it sounds like he liked something about that, about like being unplugged a little from the big art world and
definitely. And they were
normal
very cool.
people around
Hmm.
him who didn't even
Yes,
appreciate art, maybe,
yes,
or at least
yes.
his art. They thought his art was scribbles, and it got thrown away by accident a few times.
Which it kind of was, but
Yeah,
in a good way.
yeah. Well, they didn't understand why it would be worth millions of dollars, and
I
there's a
know.
story
I know.
about how it just got thrown away in the junkster. It's kind of
Yes. I
funny.
mean, that's another thing about being in a place where maybe not a lot of people are aware of, the contemporary art market and the art world. Like it does keep you humble. Because exactly, somebody off the street that doesn't know anything about art could walk in and say, well, that's just, a bunch of paint smeared on a canvas. And it's like, yeah, you're kind of right. It is. Um, but there's more to it than that. But it does keep you humble for sure. So have you
Yeah.
read Sally Mann's some of her books? Let's see, What Remains? Is that one of them?
I just have the one that came out like a few years ago, and it's like someone jumping in the air.
Yes. Yes.
I didn't know she had more books. I'll go find them. I just knew that one. It
Oh,
was
she's
pretty
great.
comprehensive.
I love her. And the documentary, I think the documentary is called What Remains.
Okay.
She spoke at my graduation at the Corcoran.
Yeah.
She was the person, yeah, she gave the commencement speech.
Wow.
I know. That was one book my mom had on the coffee table when I was growing up. Immediate Family. And I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but a lot of her kids, her daughters were nude. And
Hmm.
I get that. I get that being in the country and you see these beautiful children. And as a mother, you want to document that. It's not,
It's also like very warm in the summer, and they live on a lake, so
yeah,
it doesn't make
exactly.
sense. And they're playing in the mud, and they're
Yes.
running
And
around like wild
yeah,
people
very
having
wild.
fun.
But she also knew what she was doing. Like, there'd be images with the kids that have gotten maybe rose bush, scratches or whatever, and there's blood. And like, she knew how to be provocative with what could have been just a very pedestrian. event, but she was able to photograph them so that it was very ambiguous what was going on.
Mm,
So she was a genius in that way.
yeah.
But I didn't find them troubling, but of course a lot of people did. Uh,
I
but I
didn't
loved that
either.
part.
I think the only people who would find it troubling were people who maybe had um
Deviant.
bad ideas, or people like the FBI or whatever who are used to investigating people with deviant, you know,
Hmm.
exactly motives. And I suppose it's like yeah, depending on the world you inhabit, you either see the light side of it or the dark side, and um I I suppose it's like the age of innocence is over or whatever, if it, there ever was one, and we're all very suspicious now of motives and things like that. But I think her story is a good example of if she had made paintings or drawings, no one
Mm,
would have cared. But because she did so many photographs, it became a subversive thing. So it's just
yeah,
more to the power of, I think, film to comment on the times versus painting.
yes. It's more real, more. And actually, her daughter, the one that was most highlighted, I guess you could say, did end up, Jessie, I believe it was Jessie, ended up being kind of a model. Like she went on to try to be or was in some capacity a model for other artists or something, but she did continue that trajectory, which
Mhm.
is interesting. You know, she clearly found that there was value there for her to be a model. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. And her son, of course, committed suicide.
Oh no, that's
Yes.
sad. Yeah.
Emmett.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
just horrible. So I don't think she's had an easy life, Sally Mann.
Mm.
You know, like she is an amazing artist, very successful, very well respected, but I don't know if it's been easy. Like you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? I certainly wouldn't speak for her, but if you have children that maybe down the line thought that they had been exploited, even though that wasn't the intention, you could see how the press could sort of influence them, maybe.
I see. I'll have to look into the Emmett story. I don't know if that was in the book uh, as much.
No, it was later.
It was later.
He was diagnosed with schizophrenia, so but there was definitely what I recall either in her documentary or in the book where he said, we're not doing pictures anymore. You can't take any more pictures of me. And there is a photograph of him in the lake or the water, and it's kind of like the water's dark and he's shirtless. And it's an amazing photograph, but I think it's titled The Last Time Emmett Let Me Photograph Him. And
Oh,
he looks to be about 12 or maybe 13.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I could see that going different ways. Like, just, I mean, imagine if she'd hired models of other people's children and then they had felt like their mother had ignored them and photographed other kids their whole youth.
exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
I've heard those stories. Like, dad was always painting other
Yeah, like
people.
Lucy and Freud. Lucy and Freud is a perfect example. Like his daughter now has a podcast called Fashion Neurosis, and
Oh,
yeah, it's great. Oh, you should definitely check that out. You would
I
love
am.
it. It's called Fashion Neurosis, and she interviews a la Sigmund Freud, you know, on a couch, and um, Bella Freud is her name, and she's actually sitting in the chair that her father often used for his portraits. It's kind of this broken down leather armchair, and you'll probably recognize it if you're familiar with his paintings. But she actually is sitting in it while she's interviewing people in the fashion world or fashion icons laying on a couch. And there's a Francis Bacon painting up there, but you would love it. But she often talks about how she was kind of, you know, I think she had a great relationship with him, but you know, he was a painter and he was busy and she wasn't the only kid and, you know, there
I
was definitely,
actually,
yeah.
oh, sorry. And I actually heard worse things. There was this book called Breakfast with Lucien, and it was a journalist who got a lot of like interviews. So I guess the only time you could talk to Lucian was like when he was having lunch or breakfast. He always left the studio and went to like a local place. So he got a lot of talks, and he did a lot of interviews, and he was particularly interested in the kids, of which there were many. And there was something weird going on where, like, if Lucian wanted, if you wanted to see Lucian, you had to pose for him, usually naked.
Ah,
And it didn't
interesting.
matter if you were his daughter or his granddaughter. It was like he wanted you to pose naked because that's all he did. It was like paint.
That was the price of admission.
And yeah, and apparently if you refused, he would just cut you off. So he left a lot of his children with like a lot of psychological scars, and it sounds very clever of her to kind of, you know, take control of the narrative and make her own
Yes,
podcast, and I love that. That's great.
it's
But
great. So check that out. It's
yeah, it's a dark book if you ever want to read it. And of course it's like it's it's a book written by someone else, but you know, I feel like a lot of it is true, and I don't think he's a great example of an artist on how to be, I guess. But I sometimes toy with like making that a book club book because it's so dark and
oh yeah.
interesting.
Sign me up. Sign me up.
Yeah, maybe we
Um,
could do that then. You could be
that'd
my co-host.
be fantastic. Yeah, it's not easy being an artist, especially as, a parent. You really have to guard your time. You have to build a wall around it because it's just too easy to get distracted and not get your work done, you
I
know?
see. Yeah. Yeah, you seem to have done a great job
Well, like
of
this
doing
morning I
that.
was welding. Like I have to like my schedule is like, okay, 2 hours of welding, 2 hours of social media, editing, whatever. I have to structure my time very closely. Otherwise, I would go nuts.
Yeah. And feel like you're not getting enough done or not spending enough time with the family or
Yeah,
friends.
it's like all that. Well, I don't have, I don't really have much fun. I mean, in terms of like, I don't go out. Yeah, I think I'm a bit of a workaholic, but I love it.
Our
I
work
love
is fun though. That's the trade-off, right?
No, I
Like,
feel most fulfilled. I mean,
yeah,
it's so satisfying. I don't know how to, I find like frittering time away on ridiculous stuff, like walking through a mall. Like, I just can't do it. I'm sorry, but I get very,
unless you're
uh,
filming it and making like
right,
street
unless
photography,
it's
making art
sometimes,
out of it.
and my sister gets mad at me. She's like, does everything have to be productive? But that's just the way I am. Like it has to feed some artistic need or project, or I just feel time ticking away and I just don't want to waste
Yes,
time. And
I have the same.
I'm not judgmental. It's just, it's like Lucy and Floyd. Come on. If you don't want to pose naked for me, then we're done here.
Right. Yeah, that was actually one of the takeaways from that book. I was like, wow, he really made it clear that like he was an artist and he made art. Like I have to take that away as a good lesson learned. Like don't be abashed to be yourself. And he,
Especially if that's where you find your joy. Like don't let anybody talk you out of that. This is a
right.
great picture of you.
Oh yeah, thanks to Daniel, he did that. I
That's
pass him
great.
the camera a lot. I'm like, take a picture, take a video. I
Great.
I rope a lot of my friends into that to
Well,
have
see, this
fun.
is a perfect example. Like he is willing. If you were with somebody that just wasn't going to do it, I don't know that you'd be with them, because it's part of the relationship is him being willing to do this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he loves it and he loves you and here
I
you
think
are.
he really loves the shows. Like I could see a smile on his face. He loves talking to people.
Yeah,
He's more social than me, and he likes openings like a well-presented event.
he's
Um, he
great.
he likes to be surprised.
How did you
Uh,
guys meet?
he saw my work at the Arlington County Fair a long time ago. So he was one of my first collectors. He bought a self-portrait, and it was actually it turned out to be a commission because I was in I had just finished my first year of school, so I was back in Arlington, and I think I was like 18 or something, and um I had a little booth at the fair,
Uh-huh.
and I mean, I'm not saying the fair is not good now, but I think those were the days before social media where if you wanted to see something, you had to go somewhere in person. So
Yeah.
fairs were better quality back then because nowadays most people, including myself, are like, I'll just stay home and put it online.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. So they were really cool back then, and like you used to be able to buy like African masks that someone had imported from tribes in Africa. Like you used to be able to. Oh, that's the end of the phone. Um,
Aw.
but but yeah, so that's how we met. He saw my work a long time ago. Um, well, this was great. Thanks for talking during the whole film.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. I really appreciate it. So, yeah. So, would you have, okay, so we're having a workshop. Actually, it's a lecture demonstration. Would you call it a lecture demonstration?
Yes, yeah. I will be demonstrating a painting that's sort of like halfway done, and it's going to be a flower vase and koi swimming in the sky. So it's a little surrealist, but with representational undertones. And I'll just be painting some flowers like these,
Uh-huh.
and I'll guess I'll talk. I'll mostly show the process. I mean, I talk a bit about it, but I'll mostly be demonstrating, and then we'll probably just talk about art. And it's nice when there's a good grouping of people, and then the conversation just kind of moves in a way that helps people. So it could
Hmm.
be about the practice of making art. It could be about techniques or sharing experiences. I know a lot of artists who come to talks don't necessarily want like your technique. They kind of want a workshop where it's like they're talking about things they're struggling with in their own practice. So it could be any
Right.
of those things. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions, just either specifically about painting or mixing colors or, yeah, your life. How do you start a painting? How do you, like you said, like conceptualize ideas and we don't really know. And that's the fun part. We don't really know how it's going to go. But I know if you're there and you're involved and you have your array of still life and your painting, it's going to be amazing. And your paintings are here in the gallery, so people will have a chance to look at them and ask questions. And we're going to have tea, afternoon tea. We're going to have some nibbles and sweets, and it's going to be really, really nice.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited. I think it's going to be fun. I mean, if you want like a full workshop, those are a few days and it's not going to be as nice a setting. It'll be like,
Down and
at the
dirty.
torpedo factory in Alexandria or something, or but this is going to be a super fancy gallery with great northern light and inspirational artwork. So it's a good overview, I guess. It's like a nice
Yeah.
overview,
Well, it's more intimate because people can ask you
intimate.
questions, maybe not even related to the painting, like just sort of your history and how you stay inspired and how you make it all work, you know.
Yeah. Should we
Yeah.
record it or should we just let it be private?
Yeah,
What do you
that would
think?
be great. I mean, it is 4 hours, so I
Yeah.
mean, maybe between the two of us, we could put some footage together.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that usually? Do you set up a camera or?
Um, I could probably bring a camera with a shotgun mic. That way it just captures like the whole room.
Hmm.
Could just be
Hmm.
fun. We could we could have that.
I mean, I have a wireless mic you could wear, and we can have speakers as well. So that,
Oh yeah.
I'm thinking of having you on a platform.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
That way you're elevated,
Yeah.
so people aren't looking over heads, that you're elevated, and we could put a mic on you.
Sure.
And I
Yeah.
and I can hang your paintings so everybody can reference them.
All right.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah, I like that.
show.
I like that.
Yeah, it'll be great. We'll have a
Maybe I can
buffet.
bring some extra koi paintings. I have like two I could probably bring over if you want.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely bring anything and everything.
Or to see the start and the finish that way.
Yeah. So you haven't gotten into like prints and merch
I have prints for sale on my website. They're very high
Oh, okay.
quality, so they tend to be anywhere from like 90 to $300. And I've sold some, but it's not like a giant business. It seems to be a little hard to find the niche for prints because I feel like a lot of people are kind of against prints, and it's like it takes away from the original, they think. And then um, in general, the people that want prints, they don't want to pay more than like $30.
Yeah.
So there's that problem where it's like, um, unlike an original, the print is just seen as like a piece of paper. So then you're
Hmm.
like, why is the piece of paper so expensive? Well, the
Well,
piece of
good
paper was
point.
done by professional printers and it took them a lot of time to match the colors, and the paper is
Yes.
expensive too. And but you know, it's a hard sell. Yeah, I get it.
It's not easy. It's not easy. All right, well, good. I'm looking forward to June 22nd. That's a Sunday from 1 to 5. And you're going to be speaking about your work, showing people how you create your paintings, the process. You're going to answer all kinds of questions. We're going to have tea and sweets and little tea sandwiches, and it's going to be great. And it'll be a wonderful opportunity for people to have a one-on-one experience with Teresa Oaxaca.
Yay, I'm excited. Well,
I'm excited too.
great. Well,
Really
I'll
excited.
I'll see you guys there. And
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so there's still some spots. We still have a couple weeks. So registration just opened yesterday, and we already have students signing up. So if this is something that you would like to do, we are in Virginia in the Shenandoah Valley. So it's about an hour outside of Washington, D.C. Beautiful small town, great drive. It's a wonderful way to spend a Sunday afternoon. Why not? Art and tea and community of other artists and creatives. So join us. You can go on my website, melissaichiuji.com. That's spelled Melissaichiuji.com, and you'll find under shop Teresa's workshop. So register ASAP because space is very limited. So we hope to see you there.
see you there.
Okay, we'll see you, Teresa.